Yeah, so we've got quite a bit to cover today. KeyPay is an excellent piece of software for doing your payroll because it does have the ability to do the SHADS interpretation for you, and so it's excellent, but does require a fair bit of setup and making sure that we get everything linked together. So I'm going to go over how to set it all up and some of the tricks and stuff that I've learned along the way as well. So look, the first thing and probably pretty obvious thing is to go to your settings, so account and settings. And down the bottom, there's a section here to choose your payroll software. So you want to make sure that that's set to KeyPay. So you just hit the edit button here, choose KeyPay, and then I do recommend setting this to client custom field, and I will explain that down the track when we get to that part. The next thing I would look at is actually in your KeyPay itself. So KeyPay obviously is part of QuickBooks. So QuickBooks uses KeyPay to do its payroll. You could also be using KeyPay in Employment Hero. So I'm using it through QuickBooks, but the menus and stuff are fairly similar. So once you find the areas, it all looks the same and the settings are all the same. So look, the one thing that some people don't do when they're using KeyPay is that they don't set up their awards. So you actually can install the award that you want to use. So when you go to payroll settings and then go to manage awards, you can actually install and set up the SHADS award. So it's actually really necessary to do that to properly use KeyPay. So to do that, you just find the award that you're looking for. So you might tick all, and then you look down the list for SHADS, and then you install it from the list. Once you've got that installed, that does a few things, but the main thing it does is it sets up work types and also rules and stuff like that. So it can work out, if someone works over a 5-hour shift and they need to get a 30-minute unpaid break, it'll do that automatically, those sorts of things. So really important to do that. So we start sort of talking about setting up staff and linking staff to ShiftCare so that ShiftCare can tell KeyPay which staff member you're actually doing a timesheet for. So the way that you do that is that you need to go into ShiftCare. Now, each staff member, there's a couple of ways to do this. It kind of depends on how many staff you've got. So if you've got instead of 5 staff, then it's probably easier just to click on the staff member. And when you're on a staff member, up in the URL up the top here, it actually shows you the staff member's ID. So this staff member's ID is 81161. So that's one way to get the staff's ID, but probably an easier way if you've got more than a few staff is to download. So down the bottom, when you're in the staff list page, down the bottom right, there's an export button here. When that export's complete, I'll just show that to you. So I'll go to my communications and load up that file. It has a list of all your staff members, and on that list is their ID here. So that's a quick way to get a list of all your staff and what their ID is. Now, what you'll need to do is you'll need to, for example, Android carer here is 93533. So we need to get that ID into KeyPay. So to do that, you need to go to your employees. So you would just go to employees on the left. And when it loads, if it loads, just refresh. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to click on each employee. Now, each employee in QuickBooks has what we call an external ID. So with that external ID, that's where we're going to put that number if QuickBooks actually wants to work for me. There it goes. All right, cool. So we'll go into Android carer. And if we scroll down to the bottom area here, you'll see here external ID, and you can see that I've already put that external ID in. So that's really important because that's how KeyPay is going to know who the employee is. So you need to do that for each employee that you've got. Next, I like to talk about locations. Some people don't use locations, but it can actually be quite handy for a few reasons. But locations is a way that you're able to say where the shift located, and then you can actually run reports from KeyPay as to how much you're spending on wages and stuff like that. So this one's a little bit different. What you need to do is you need to set up your locations in KeyPay first. So in your settings area, there's a locations setting. So here it is here, locations. And so, look, most people will run their locations based on the name of the client. So in this case, I've got Julia Roberts as a client. So I've created Julia Roberts as a location. So to do that, all you need to do is click add and give it a name and then hit save. You can put more details in, obviously. Now I've created Julia Roberts as a location. What we need to do is we need to actually export out from KeyPay the list of locations. So if I download this spreadsheet, now in this spreadsheet, it'll have the ID from KeyPay of the location. So we can see here, Julia Roberts is the location and her ID is 624801. Now we actually need to put that into ShiftCare. So into ShiftCare, you need to go to the client and then go list. And with Julia Roberts, we open her up and you can see here, I put it into the custom field 624801. So what happens is when we export these shifts out, every shift, it will look at who the client is on the shift and it will put that location ID there. And then that will track that against the shift in QuickBooks. So that's an optional thing. You don't have to do that, but I generally find if you're setting everything up, you may as well set it up properly and get the most out of it as you can. Okay, so the next thing, when we export out timesheets from ShiftCare, we actually export out using the shift type. So every time you put in and you create a shift, you're going to put a shift type on the shift, and that shift type is going to have an ID, and that ID is how KeyPay is going to know how to treat that shift, how to pay that shift. So generally speaking, I recommend setting up your shift types just like you normally would. So if you want to use personal care, that's fine. If you want to do access community, if you want to do group activities, all those kinds of different shift types that you may use to run your business, that's fine. What you'll need to do is you'll need to go into QuickBooks and we go into payroll settings and we go into work types. So work types, when you come in here, you'll be able to see the SHADS already has pre-built work types, which is great. And we are going to use a couple of these for allowances like kilometers and sleepover. But you'll need to make your own ones for your shift types that you have. So for example, I've got personal care here. I've already made that as one, but if I go to my settings in ShiftCare and I have a look at the other shift types that I have another shift type for respite care. So what I could do is I could create a new work type and I could call it respite care. I'll need to give it an external ID. Now, the external ID needs to match the ID, the type ID of that. So if I go to respite care, it's this number here. It's really important. A lot of people think it'll be this external ID, but it's not. It's a type ID. So you need to grab that number. So if I go to respite care and I grab that number, and then I put that into the external ID for this new work type. Now I'm going to enable it for the three types of employees that I have. And I'm just going to leave this here on employees primary pay category. So that means it's going to look at how you've set up your employee. And I'm going to talk about setting up employees a bit further into the webinar. But just leaving that as the primary pay category is the best way to do it. So you hit save. So that's now created a work type for me for respite care. So anytime that I do a shift and a staff member's against that respite care, it's going to then go to their primary pay category and pay them. And you can see I'd previously made a personal care one here as well. And then if I hit the edit button, the personal care's ID is 23607. And if I go into ShiftCare, personal care ID is 23607 here. So that's matching that up. So you want to make sure you go through every single shift type that you have and make sure that you put in the right codes and link everything up. That way it'll know what to do with them when they come over. Let's talk about allowances. They're slightly different, but very similar premise. So in allowances, the two main allowances that you're going to use is your mileage and your sleepover. So with mileage, what you need to do is you'll find that there's already one. So like I said, you don't need to create one. There is one with the SHADS award already. It's called kilometre allowance here. Now, if you go over to the edit button here, it already has an ID in it, the external ID. So you can just keep that ID and then just come into your mileage here and hit edit and change the code to that number. So now it's going to go over and it's going to match up with that. Same with sleepover. So if we go down to sleepover and we click on the edit button, we're going to grab that sleepover ID and then we'll put that in there and hit save. So that's now matched those two. Now, sleepovers work the same way as we normally suggest, so that you should have one shift. So say a staff member works from 5 p.m. and they work until 10 p.m. and then they have the sleepover and then they work in the morning for another few hours. That should be 3 separated shifts. The reason being that sleepover does the same thing in ShiftCare as it does over in QuickBooks. What will happen is that you will attach the sleepover to the sleepover shift. That will then, when you send that over to KeyPay, it will just pay the sleepover allowance once. It won't pay the shift as an hourly rate. So yeah, really important to continue to split your shifts into 3. If the staff member does have to wake up during that, it will require editing the timesheet over in KeyPay. There is no automatic system to do that. Okay, so that's how to connect up your work types and your allowances. Other allowances, I should mention, other allowances you don't need to worry about. So one of the really great benefits of using KeyPay is that you actually can do first aid allowances. You can do uniform allowances, all that kind of stuff, but that doesn't actually involve ShiftCare in any way. You can just assign it to a staff member, which I'll cover pretty much about now. So there's a couple of things. So when we talked about setting up the award, so we went into manage award and we turned on the SHADS award. What comes with that is a set of rules. So if we go to rules set here and we look at the SHADS rules, we can look at the rules for, say, a casual worker. And so in that rules, if I go edit rules, I'll be able to see all the rules that KeyPay automatically does. It creates these rules. And so when we're talking about first aid allowance, what you can do here is the rule says that if the employee has a tag of first aid, then if they do any shifts, it'll add a unit of first aid allowance per hour, and with a maximum of 38 units. So it'll cap out like the award says that it should. So really all you need to do to kick this in is to tag the employee, and I'll show you how to add tags. And that actually works same for laundry allowance. So if they have a tag of laundry allowance, they'll get paid in a laundry allowance, uniform allowance, if they've got a uniform allowance, and it will automatically work out broken shift allowances. So it's really great. It works out, you know, if the shift is has had too long, it'll work out to pay the broken shift. So this is some of the advantages of using KeyPay, is it will add these allowances as it goes. So we were talking about the tags. So adding the tags is really simple, and you can put the tags in at that point when you're putting that external ID that I was showing you before. But there is a section here just under the external ID is tags. So you can come in here and say, okay, they should get a first aid allowance. They should also get a laundry allowance, or something like that, and hit save. And so that will then kick in those allowances when you add timesheets into the system. Any rules that you don't like or anything like that, you can go in and edit them. Obviously, they recommend against editing the rules because you're changing the award, you're changing the rules on the award. But some things you might, they should have an unpaid break of half an hour. Some of the clients say to me, well, I pay them for that break anyway. I let them take the break, but I still pay them. So you can turn off that rule to continue the pay all the way through the shift. So yeah, you can reach out. You can edit it from that same section, but if you need any help with that, so that's all in the rule sets here. But if you need any help with that, you can speak to KeyPay. They'd be able to help you with that. Okay, so I guess the next thing is how does this all work? So we've gone through and we've tagged everything up and we've put everything together. So how do we actually send timesheets over to KeyPay? So the process to do that is to go to reports and then timesheet. So generally, my recommendation would be through the week of your timesheet that you would go through and approve the timesheets for the staff that you want to approve their hours for the week, and then export. It's not a requirement though. So if you're happy that your shifts in the system are correct and that you're paying as per the shift and not per their clock in and clock out times, then we can just export their times. So we can come down here to the export button on the bottom right, and we can choose all hours for KeyPay. So that's going to schedule an export. Again, we'll just go and grab that export. So I'm going to download. So now we've got this file that we need to download. No need to open it. You just need to download it, and then we'll go into KeyPay and we'll import timesheets. So when you go into manage employees here, there's an import timesheets option. So we'll click on that. We're going to leave it as custom file upload. Select the file. Cool. Yes, I'm going to confirm that. So there is something that you need to do in this next section here. Most of it does match up pretty well. So we've got external ID. So this is what's in the file, and this is what it's going to map to in KeyPay. And so that's obviously matching up well. Start time, date time, end time, break duration, shift type. So we don't need to do the shift type, but we do need to do this shift type ID because we spoke about the shift type ID before. Now that matches to the work type external ID. So we need to come down here and match that up to the work type external ID. That's really important so that it knows what everything should go against. Units is good, comments is fine. And then down the end here, we've also got custom field. Now, custom field was the one that we did for the location external ID. So we put that number in and we can see there's that number there. So that's matched against that external ID. So make sure that you map up that custom field. If you do end up wanting to use the location, then you'll do that. So we'll hit do not replace timesheets and approve timesheets. We'll leave it as no. And we'll click on import. One thing to note at the top, you actually have a file format thing. So I actually have it saved. So you don't have to manually do this mapping every time. Once you do it the first time, so let's say this is the first time you've done it, when you click on import, you'll be able to click the button here. It says, if you plan to reuse this timesheet in the future, you can save your file format. So if you click on that and hit save, and I called it ShiftCare, then that means that next time you go to do it, you can drop down that drop down sheet and you can do it through that. Cool. So let's go into approve timesheets. And so we can see there that it's added some kilometers and it's added some personal care there. I'm just going to approve that, those two timesheets. And this part's really more of a KeyPay system side of things, but I'll quickly run through it. So once you've approved your timesheets, you then need to do your pay run. So you'll go new pay run. I'm going to do it for the week ending the 25th. Create. Cool. So I've got my employee in here. I can add the timesheets, so I can import timesheets that I just did. If it wants to do it. There we go. So if I open that up now, that's going to have a few things in here. So it's got the shift that I did here, and you can see that the Shads Award has automatically done that 30-minute unpaid break. So the shift was actually from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., but it's done a half an hour unpaid break in that. And like I say, you can turn that rule off if you don't want to. We've got the vehicle allowance that's come through. And we've got the first aid and the laundry because I added them to the employees' tags. So from there, you would finalize your pay run and do your normal run. But yeah, that's pretty much the KeyPay integration all the way through, which I've absolutely smashed out. I guess Andrew, have we got any questions?
We had a few questions coming in, Paul, mainly around whether this was being recorded, which it is. So everyone will send out a link to the recording tomorrow once it's uploaded and ready. If you've missed quick today, we'll...
I'm losing Andrew a little bit there. See if he
at the moment.
You're back.
I'm back. Sorry, I'm having some internet problems here. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, you can raise your hand. We're happy to open the mic up and answer any questions you've got. If not, we can wrap things up. You can always reach out to Paul, the support team. If you've got any other KeyPay questions, we'd be happy to run you through. Tim has a question. He's just said hi. Can you explain adding tags to staff?
Yeah.
Tim had asked.
Yeah, so again, you need to just go to your employees and then click on the employee. And if you scroll down to the very bottom, the tags are just down here. So you've got your different tags here. So you just need to choose which tag. And if you're not sure what the tags are, then you can look at the rules set for the award, and it will show you, like, for the rules what tags are going to do what. So you need to look through all the awards.
Great stuff. Persane's asked, they may have missed it, can ShiftCare do automatic integration with KeyPay?
No, so you need to export the spreadsheet like I did. So you export it and then you import it in. But once you've sort of set up that template, it's really just a couple of minute job. Yeah, it's not like the Xero integration. It doesn't just automatically. You need to download the file and then upload it. It's very similar to the invoices for Xero.
Yeah, we will be, we're actually looking into direct integration with KeyPay and QuickBooks. So it is on our roadmap, and we are looking at doing that direct integration as we do with Xero. It probably won't be ready, I would say probably Q3 or Q4 towards the end of this year, but it's something that a lot of our customers have asked for, and we're actively looking into doing that for you, Persane. Great. Bex just asked for the recording. Yeah, we'll send that out to you tomorrow. Persane would love to see that feature soon. So we'll try and get that sorted for you as quickly as possible. Tanya has asked, if you have accidentally uploaded sheets that you don't need, where can you delete them?
Yeah, so I've had to delete a lot of timesheets while I've been doing a lot of playing with it. So I know how to do that. So yeah, look, the easiest way I found to do it is if you go to manage employees and then go to approve timesheets, you can say, okay, I want to look at like all. So you go any, and then you can change the date range, and you can look back through, and then you can tick them here, and then come down to the bottom, and then up here you click delete timesheets, and it'll delete them. The other thing that you can do, like if you have just imported your timesheets and you're not happy with them, you can remember when I did the import, it had an option to overwrite the previous timesheets. It will do that, so it'll get rid of the old ones and put the new ones in.
Great. Annie, you just raised your hand. I'm just going to open the microphone up to you if you want to ask Paul a question live.
Yes. Hi, Paul. Does it work with MyOb?
Does KeyPay work with MyOb?
Yes.
Sorry, does ShiftCare work with MyOb? Is that your question?
Yes.
Yeah, so we do have an integration with MyOb as well. It's with a MyOb account, right? But it's completely different to the integration with KeyPay. So anything I talked about today wouldn't really be relevant to MyOb.
Okay.
But we may do a webinar on MyOb soon.
Yes, that would be good, actually.
We also have documentation on our, so if you go to help.shiftcare.com, we've got documentation on how that integration works and how to set that up.
Is it very different to this,
well,
to QuickBook?
It's a bit different. KeyPay is a bit unique in the way that we do shift types with our integration with KeyPay, whereas MyOb uses pay groups, which is what Xero does as well. So yeah, there's a little bit of difference, but the theory is still the same. You're exporting out timesheets and importing them into MyOb.
Okay.
Annie, if you needed a hand with getting that set up, if you want to reach out to our support team, we can potentially have one of our success managers give you a call and can do a Zoom with you as well. If you can pick it up with it.
Yes, I would love that.
Yeah, fantastic. I've got your details there, so I'll reach out to you after the webinar and we can touch base.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Annie. Cheers.
Bye.
Jonathan, I'm just going to allow Jonathan to talk. Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. I'm not a finance person, but I'm more on the ShiftCare side of things. But I just wanted to know a bit more about how the title of today was about KeyPay, and my understanding about KeyPay, it's sort of like in between connector between that and your payroll accounting software. Is that correct?
KeyPay is actually the actual payroll software, so it actually does the payroll and does the pays.
And it does the pays, and then does it connect to your finance system as well?
Yeah, well, it's kind of built into the finance system. So KeyPay kind of sits inside QuickBooks. So QuickBooks uses KeyPay to actually run its payroll, and then all the reporting and everything you do in QuickBooks is looking at that payroll.
Okay, so everything you showed us today was essentially KeyPay, because I was just a bit confused because it was showing QuickBooks, and I was like,
that's right, yeah. So it is KeyPay. It sits within QuickBooks, and it also sits within Employment Hero. So it is like and it can also be a standalone payroll system as well. So it's one of those sort of things where I believe QuickBooks bought or Employment Hero bought KeyPay, and so they've embedded it into their software as well. But yeah, it's kind of it can either be embedded in the software or it can be its own standalone software.
And is KeyPay also in Xero?
No, Xero uses its own payroll.
Okay, all right.
Xero doesn't do SHAD's interpretation though, so that's where you really gain the advantage from KeyPay, is that it's able to actually apply all those rules, whereas Xero won't do that.
Right, and from what I've heard, because I'm not part of the finance team, is that you know, it seems like we don't, you know, the only thing we seem to need to do in ShiftCare is make sure that the, you know, like the sleepover allowance and mileage allowances are added to those shifts, and then that gets sent over to KeyPay.
That's right. I mean, the only other thing is if you want to do those first aid allowances or uniform allowances and stuff like that, you would have to add the tags to the employees. But yeah, pretty much just adding this.
And that's going to be handled in KeyPay anyway. You could do it in ShiftCare, but there's probably no need to do that.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't really work well in ShiftCare either, because it tries to add it to every shift. So it is better to do it in KeyPay.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it. So from what I'm picking up today, just making sure that it's sort of the reverse of how I thought about it. It's so in KeyPay, you're going to have to set up and connect to the ShiftCare codes.
Yeah, kind of depending for locations, it's the other way. But yeah, exactly. A lot of people sort of aren't sure how those codes come out. So yeah, for the employees, you've got to grab the codes out of ShiftCare and put them into KeyPay.
Right. Okay. Good. Because the reason I'm asking that one is because I've added a bunch of new shift types, and they'll have probably identical. You know, they'll I've added them so we can just better organise the different areas, like group programs versus personal care versus community access versus night shift, etc.
Yeah.
And the payroll doesn't really care about that, but we'll just have to.
You just need to make sure you've got a work type in for that. And also, I think there was one other thing I didn't mention was making sure that in KeyPay that you set up their pay rates. So make sure that you tell the system what pay template they should be on, so that they get the right pay.
Yeah. So the employees you just have to go by employee, make sure they're the right.
That's right. So they're on SHADs. What level are they? What pay rate are they? You can override that amount. So that's their ordinary hours rate. And then the award will take care of the rest for you.
Great. Okay, I think that's answered all my questions. Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks, Jonathan. I think that's all. If anyone's Emmanuel. Emmanuel's got a question. Hey, Emmanuel.
Hi, Andrew. Can you guys hear me?
We can, mate. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool. Quick question. With KeyPay, I can see that obviously it's linked to Employment Hero, and for the most part, Employment Hero does update the award on the 1st of July. Does this also apply for KeyPay and QuickBooks, that the award is automatically updated, or do we need to do something?
Absolutely. Yeah, I believe that what happens is, so when I first started playing around with KeyPay again, I had a big warning come up here at the top. So kind of like this unfinalized warning, it was telling me that there was updates to the SHADS award and that I needed to install them. And so then I went through and installed them, and it updates all the rules and everything. So yeah, you will be kept up to date with all the SHADS award stuff.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Perpinder. Hey, mate, how are you?
Can you hear me?
Oh, very faintly.
Is it not very clear?
I might be able to hear you enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Just one question. So does it interpret 100% as per SHADS award, or we still need to do some manual work?
Look, it should pretty much be able to do everything that the SHADS award does. It will be just a question of, ensuring that the rules and the tags on your employees are correct. And the biggest thing you'll have trouble with is the sleepovers. You just need to make sure they're a separate shift and you put the sleepover allowance on them. But yes, KeyPay should be able to do all the SHADS award requirements as long as you've got the right tags on the staff member.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Thanks, Perpinder. Okay, Jonathan has a question as well, Paul.
Cool. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, just another question. I'm just thinking about from a rostering perspective. When we're rostering, if we have just say we have a night someone who's on a sleepover, and then they do say 2 hours the next morning, and then just say, for instance, they're going to probably go into overtime. We need a person. We need that same person to work a shift some hours later. That if it's a broken shift like that, say they normally clock off at say 9 a.m. and then maybe we have them start say 4 p.m. later that day.
Yep.
So it would automatically pick up in KeyPay. That's going to be a broken shift, and we'll pay that allowance and everything.
That's right, and it'll also work out how many hours there should be between the shift before it starts giving overtime because they did too many hours in a small time frame. So yeah, the system's got rules for all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll pick up all those little things and work that out for you. So we just okay.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yep.
Cool.
Thanks, Jonathan.
No worries.
I think that's it, Paul. No more.
No worries.
Oh, sorry, Michael. Yeah, there will be a recording, mate. We are recording the entire session. So once we finish this up, we'll upload it to YouTube, and anyone that's registered will receive a copy of the link, and you'll be able to review this at a later stage as well. Paul Bupinder's got another question.
Yeah.
As well.
I believe Zero has, sorry, I will not discuss Zero, but is there any limit, number of employee limits, like 200, 300, or is there none?
Is this for KeyPay?
Yeah.
I'm not too sure, to be honest. You might have to reach out to KeyPay to chat. But in terms of our integration, there'll be no issues with how many we can send over. But I'm not sure whether they have any. I doubt they would, but yeah, have a chat with KeyPay.
Okay. I thought you from KeyPay.
No, I'm from ShiftCare. So
Okay. No, actually, I was thinking maybe they organize from KeyPay.
yeah, no, we thought we'd do. Look, the webinar was more about how to connect ShiftCare to KeyPay, but I do know that a lot of people have questions about KeyPay, so I'm trying to answer as many as I can. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that one.
It's okay. Thank you. Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks, Rupinder. Okay. Any final questions? Otherwise, we might wrap things up a little bit earlier today. That looks to be pretty good. Paul, thank you so much, mate. I appreciate that. That was a really good run through. As I said, we've recorded this. We'll send the link out to everybody to review it later on. But thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks for our next webinar.
Thanks all.
Thanks, Paul.